Happy 5th of July, right? That's good. Hopefully your 4th of July plans were great and you had a blast. And it's crazy to think about. Our country is now 250 years old. Isn't that insane? That's so much. That's so long. 250 years. Anyone been alive 250 years? And it sounds like so much until you go to Europe. And you realize 250 years is like the new kid on the block. Like, oh, tell us, wait till you get to 4 digits, right? Yet, when you think of the history of our country and all that's happened in 250 years and where it started to where it is now and the freedoms that we enjoy, and it really is worth celebrating and recognizing where the country that we live in. So hopefully you got to celebrate and enjoy that with family, or maybe you still are this weekend and have more plans after this. I do also want to share this kind of fun little thing too. So if you've noticed the last few weeks, we've had different people leading worship because at this church we have the blessing. The leadership decided many years ago that pastors and staff after 10 years of serving at New Hope would be given a sabbatical. And this year is Pastor Brian's 10th year here at New Hope. So he gets an awesome 2-month sabbatical that he is now on and enjoying with his family, and he's got some personal retreats and spiritual retreats, and then he'll come back ready to go, refreshed. So this summer we get the awesome opportunity to just have more people and more New Hope family leading and singing and leading us in worship. So you'll see that, and so there might be new faces. Oh, I don't know them. And they would love to meet you, and so you can go and be encouraged with the many people that call New Hope home. So we are in this series, When Jesus Told Stories, and we're looking at the parables of Jesus, and not just what he said, and not even just what he meant, but what it means for us, and what the implications are for our lives when Jesus shares these stories. And this morning is no different. These are 2 parables that are extremely short. I mean, he goes through these really quickly, and yet they are profound. And so we're going to read them together. Would you do this? Would you stand with me as we read the Bible together? We read the words of Jesus and these very compact and yet powerful parables of Jesus. Here's what he says in Matthew 13, verse 44. He says this: "The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. And when a man found it, he hid it again. And then in his joy went and sold all he had and bought that field." Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. And when he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it. You may be seated. So, Jesus, in the midst of, we're in Matthew 13. We have been for a number of weeks now, so maybe you've caught on. He just gives parable after parable, story after story after story. And he throws these in here, and they're very short, and there's essentially 2 parables with the same kind of focus, yet they are different, and we'll look at this. And here's what we realize. Here's what this morning, what we're looking at, here's what this is referencing and talking about, and it's this. Everybody is building their life around something. Everyone that you know is building their life around something. And it's something they believe in, something that they believe is worth it. You're building your life around things that you believe are worth building your life around. And it's different for all of us, though some may overlap, but all of us, none of us are living in such a way where you don't have anything that you value or find important. There are things that you value. There are certainly things that you find important. And there are things that you value that others might not, and that you wish they valued. And you're trying to convince them of valuing the things that you value. And if you live in the same home, that is a fun conversation. Nobody lives without treasure. You probably don't call it treasure, like this is what I treasure, but you say this is what I value. This is what we value, our home or our family. This is what is important to us. And for some, it's if you don't know what you value, think of it's the things that you protect. It's the things that you pursue. It's the things that you spend money on potentially. It's the things that you think about. It's the things that you fear losing. It's the things that you sacrifice for, whatever those are. For a lot of people, it seems to be the most important thing in their life is their own personal happiness and comfort. And let's be honest, you pursue that. We buy things all the time to make our life just 1% more comfortable, just a little bit more comfortable. And you can live your entire life valuing comfort. For some, it's success. You want to be successful in your career, in your business, in whatever it is that you've devoted your life to. And so the meaning of your life is in the amount of success that you can accomplish over a lifetime. For others, it's approval, that you want others to say, good job. For others, it's control. If you're in a room, you're in charge. And that's like the thing that you want to be known for is, yes, I'm in charge. For others, it may be a relationship, it may be money, it may be the life you've always imagined, and it doesn't necessarily mean this is all bad stuff. This isn't bad things. This is just what we value and what we pursue, what's important to us. And Jesus tells these two parables to go right at the heart of the matter of the things that we value most. And he does so, again, in story form. And he shares these two stories, two parables that confront the things that we build our lives around, the things that we focus our hearts on. He shares these stories to go right at them. And if you read these quickly, you just pass over it. We see a man who finds a treasure hidden in a field, and then a merchant looking for these pearls of great price, of great value. And here's what Jesus is not saying. If you read this at face value and just take this literally, it can almost sound like Jesus is saying, I have to go buy my way into faith. I buy my way into the kingdom. I have to go sell what I have so I can go purchase this thing. But he's not saying that's how you do it. He's not saying literally you have to spend money to become a follower of Jesus. What he's saying is this speaks to the value of what has been found. It's not that you buy your way in, but rather, ready for this? The value is so high that it's going to cost you something. It doesn't cost you money, but it will cost you. And these two stories, Jesus is saying the cost is maybe more than you think, and yet it's worth it more than you think. This treasure isn't like when you find this, he isn't saying the rest of your treasure now is meaningless or worthless, but rather everything else becomes small in comparison to this new treasure. And the problem, what we're going to face today, what you're going to, I think when you walk away, what you're going to feel today isn't, I hope it isn't, well, now I understand the parables better, though you might. I hope that when you leave today, you come to this realization. The issue is not whether you find Jesus valuable or not. The issue is whether you've seen him clearly enough to surrender the things that compete with him. That if you value him enough that the other things start to fade away. The issue isn't Is Jesus important? I imagine that all of you, you're here, it's a Sunday morning, you're at church on 4th of July weekend, you're like, I'm going to church. You at least place some level of value in hearing and worshiping Jesus and hearing about him, and so you're here. Great. The issue is not, is Jesus important? The issue is, how important? Here's the point that we're going to see this morning. Jesus, he cannot be your treasure. He cannot be your treasure if he's just an add-on to your life. If you're just adding Jesus to all of the other treasures you've accumulated, then he isn't of the value that you maybe wish or think he should be. That as much as we say, we say Jesus my Lord and Savior, and yet we live for all these other things. Jesus, he cannot. If Jesus is just an add-on, if I were to have a conversation with you, or you have a conversation with someone, maybe a neighbor or a coworker or someone that you meet, and they say, hey, so tell me about yourself. Tell me a little bit about you. And you list off all the things, maybe things you've accomplished, and maybe things about your family, or things that you like to do, maybe hobbies that you're into, or what you do for work, or like where you've lived and where you've traveled to, and you just list all this stuff, trying to build like, here's a great picture of who I am. And then at the end of that, you go, oh, and I almost forgot, I'm a Christian. You're tacking Jesus onto all of the rest of your life. Here's who I really am. Oh, and by the way, also, just if little insight, also I go to church. If that is your understanding, and if that is your value of Jesus, of the kingdom, then Jesus cannot be this great treasure in your life. And it isn't because he's not capable. It's because you don't know what he's worth yet. Here's what we see. In Matthew 13, verse 44, it starts like this. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. And when a man found it, Jesus says. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. And when he found one of great value, here's what we see. Ready? The kingdom must be discovered before it can be treasured. Before you can even think about the value of Jesus and who he is and and what he should be in your life, you have to figure that out. You have to discover this. And notice, like in these two parables, they both come to the same end conclusion, but they do it different ways. And wouldn't you know, this is the same, we see the same pattern in people's lives today. So the first man he finds a treasure hidden in a field. He just discovers it. We don't know how or why. Maybe he's digging, maybe he's trying to build, and maybe he's trying to clear for a crop, and he finds this great treasure hidden in a field. He just discovers it. But notice this, he's not looking for it. And there are people that you know, there are people in this room, it may be you. This one is me. You're not looking for Jesus, and yet somehow you stumble into this thing. Like when I became a Christian, a follower of Jesus, I wasn't like on some truth search to like this quest to find out the one true religion. I'm just living my life. And I got dragged into church, probably like some of you. And you show up and you're like, this is just weird. And it's just full of, they all look nice, but they're weird. And church is weird. And I remember the first time I go in, and my attitude was this, like, all right, I don't even know why I'm here. I don't even know how my life had got me to this point, but all right, hands folded. By the end, I'm doing this. I'm like, all right, I need to listen to this guy. I don't know what this is. I don't know what he's saying. I don't understand any of these verses, but there's something here. And I'd go back and again, and here I am now being that guy telling I want you to lean in and be like, all right, what is this guy saying? Not because he's some great guy, but because what he's talking about is so important. And this man, he discovers it, and then he finds the way he comes to faith, the way he discovers the value of the kingdom is he just finds it. And there are people who are in your life, people that you know, maybe you, and you just kind of just stumbled into faith. And there will be people who will come to you if they know you're a follower, and they'll come with questions, and they'll say, all right, I don't understand what's going on in my life, but this happened and this happened. You go to church, right? You believe in God. What is going on? It's almost like I'm reluctantly forced into thinking about who God is. That's this guy. And then the next one you see, he's actually, we see this, a merchant looking for fine pearls. He's looking for treasure. He's actively searching. This is not that I just happened upon it. I'm trying to find the valuable, I'm looking for treasure. This is the person who says, I'm trying to discover and understand truth. I want to know what's right and what's real. If there is a God, I want to know what he's like, and I'm studying religions and faiths, and I read this, and I watch this, and I listen to this, and I've been to this church and this synagogue, I went to this thing, and they're like actively pursuing. That's this guy. And many people come to faith like this, where you say, I went out, I tried to discredit it, I tried to prove it wrong, and as more I read, more I research, more I look into this, like the more it changes me, and that's this person. And he comes to faith, actively looking for treasure. And when he finds it, this great value, different roads, but the same treasure. You are on a different road. You are on a different path to find Jesus than I am, than the person next to you. And yet we come to the same spot, the same end, the same conclusion. This treasure is of infinite worth. How do you value this treasure we find? What is Jesus worth? What's the dollar amount that you would pay to have a relationship with Jesus? What is that number? How can you put a number to it? And these guys both find it. And billions of people have been on their journey and have found this treasure. And you, many of you, most of you, hopefully, well, I pray, hopefully all of you will discover the same treasure. But here's the thing. You will never fully surrender to this treasure. You will never surrender deeply to this treasure if you don't fully value it. You cannot surrender fully if you don't value it fully. If you don't understand the value and importance of Jesus, then you won't surrender to him. He'll just be another thing of your life trying to tell you what to do. Church will just feel like rules. Church will just feel like they're trying to control me because it's competing with all the other things in your life. Surrender feels like death. The issue is not, is Jesus important? The issue is how important. Once these men find the value they have, they don't admire it. They don't say, wow, look at that treasure. They act. Here's what we see. The kingdom, it does this, and this I don't like, and you won't like this. The kingdom reorders what you are willing to lose, what you're willing to give up, what you're willing to not have in your life anymore. Look at what Jesus says. Here's their response. Ready? The first man, he sold all he had and bought the field. The merchant, he went away, sold everything, same response, sold everything he had and bought it. This is where modern Christianity, I think, gets uncomfortable. What we want is we want Jesus, but we don't want to give you everything. You especially when you're new to this and you're trying to figure it out, and then even as you get further in life and further in faith, you want Jesus. You do. I truly believe that. Like you guys, you want. Like I'm assuming most of us here you're here because you want Jesus. The issue isn't that you don't want Jesus. The issue is, what are you willing to give up in pursuit of him? What are you willing to lose? What are you willing to no longer have in pursuit of this? We want the kingdom. You want Jesus as an upgrade to your life. You have your life, and then you add Jesus, and now my life's better. That is not Christianity. That is not the gospel. Jesus, listen, he does not care to upgrade your life, to make you the best version of you. The kingdom is not about an upgrade. The kingdom is about a takeover. He wants you, all of you, your entire life, every aspect. Not to make you better, but he wants you, ready? He wants you to lose your life. Whoa. It's not about becoming the best version of you so that you can attain all of the potential that you have and you say, I am now the greatest version of myself, like this self-help with verses kind of thing. No, that's not this. The gospel is not that. The gospel is, are you done trying this on your own? Okay, let me take over your life. It's why Jesus says things like anyone who wants to find their life will lose it, but anyone who loses their life for my sake, you want to lose your life for my sake? You're going to get everything. It's why Paul says, for me, he says, to live is Christ and to die is gain. Something happens when you understand the value of Jesus and who he is. This is what happens. When that person, you, me, whoever it may be, when that person recognizes and realizes just how valuable the kingdom, just how valuable Jesus is, and they get to the point where they say, I will lose literally anything for this. There is nothing that I won't give up in pursuit of Jesus. That person becomes extremely dangerous. That person you can't control. That person will sell everything they have to get an airplane ticket, to go to another country, to go preach the gospel to people who haven't heard, just for them to kill them, just to lose their life. And they do so knowingly, willingly, to say, what can I lose? I will quite literally sell everything I have, including myself, in pursuit of this. And if I die, Paul says, I win. If I die, listen, I'll speak for myself. I don't want to put you in this category. If I die for my faith, I win the stinking game. That's how you win. Is you lose yourself and you say, it's not about me anymore. I give up what I want. I say, Lord, what you want, I want that. I'll sell and lose everything. It doesn't matter whatever it is, so that I can have this value, the value of the kingdom, of being with you forever. There's no price tag that I won't pay to do that, including my life. What do you do with that person? How do you control that person? How do you read Acts and you go, these guys were crazy. And they're getting flogged and imprisoned, and they're getting tortured, and they're like getting stoned and losing their lives. And we can't stop this thing. We can't stop them because you can't, you literally cannot kill this force that says you can't. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing I won't lose for the sake of this. So do your worst. Take what you want. Surrender, if surrender is painful to you, if when you hear it's going to cost you something, if when we talk about, hey, you're going to lose things here, you're going to lose things in your life, and if that sounds and feels, if surrendering control of your life sounds painful, here's why. It's because Jesus is too small in your life. It's because you don't understand the value of what you have. It's because you think that Jesus is not worth the sacrifice of this thing. Surrender is painful when Jesus is really small, when Jesus is just an add-on, when it's just one thing that you do. When your family We go to church on Sundays, but it's not really like what we do. But surrender, it becomes a joy when Jesus is your treasure. When you understand the value, you say things like, it doesn't matter what it costs me. I'll give it up. Whatever it costs. Yeah, but it's gonna be painful. You're gonna be less comfortable. Do you know what he has prepared for me? Do you know what he's building for me? And when I get there, I'll make sure that the dimensions are all right, and I'm gonna make sure I got my yard right. I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna let him know. But do you know what I have in store? Do you know the joy that we will experience? And we're talking about losing a little bit of temporary comfort now. We're sacrificing potential future joy, potential future, like the kingdom of heaven. We're going to sacrifice that for a little bit of comfort now. For some stuff that, again, when we die, it goes to someone else. It's not yours. Man, once you recognize the value of the gospel, the value of Jesus, the value of the kingdom of heaven, there's nothing you're not willing to lose. Even the good stuff. There's no cost you won't pay. When Jesus becomes your treasure, surrender stops feeling like punishment. And ready for this? It starts feeling like discipleship. It starts feeling like holiness. It starts feeling like I think I'm doing this right. It's costing me. It's hurting. I think God is making me into the person that he really wants me to be. And it's not someone who just enjoys more comfort. I'm starting to value Jesus now more than I ever have, which means you're willing to lose more than you've ever lost in pursuit of more Jesus. Now, none of you, I imagine, this is true of me, I didn't get into Christianity with that gospel. The message I heard that first Sunday was not, hey, you're going to lose a lot. It's going to cost so much, it's going to be real painful. You want to join? It's not a good pitch. And yet, that's the gospel. That to live is Christ, and to die, Paul says, is how you win. To die is gain. To lose it all right? But Jesus, he presses deeper than just behavior, and what happens is, he's not just after what we give up. This is hard now. He wants what we love. He doesn't want you to give up the bad stuff. And then you're like, I probably should stop. I probably should give that up. I probably should not be doing that. He wants you to give up the things that you go, no, but this is the most important thing in my life. This is the most valuable thing in my life. You want me to give that up? And what you're doing now is comparing the value of competing treasures. There's the treasure of the kingdom of heaven and Jesus, and you value that at whatever you value it, and then the things that you love. And he says, unless the scales tip this way, you'll never fully understand the weight of this, of just how, unless this is elevated higher than everything else. The kingdom, here's what happens. It exposes what your heart truly values. That when we talk about the gospel and what you're willing to lose, what you're willing to give up, what you're willing for for it to cost you, this is where you actually have to think about just how important is all of this to me. What are you willing to sacrifice for this? Jesus, the first parable, here's how he responds. This guy says, in his joy, this man, he went and sold all he had. Here's what happens. Surrender is painful if Jesus is small in your life, but joy seems to become the engine of surrender. That it's not guilt, it's not pressure, it's not religious perception of what people think about you. I'll surrender because I know people are watching and it'll look good and I want people to know that I'm serious about my faith. Forget it. Who cares? That's so fake. Unless it's out of joy and you say, God, this is so valuable to me that I will willingly give up all of whatever else because of the joy of experiencing more of you. Here's what it looks like for me. I have 4 kids. They are the most valuable things in my life, and there's no close second. And so what does that mean to say, you give up the cost is the most valuable thing, my kids? Here's the cost, ready? This is my cost. And I'm sure if you have kids, you do this too. First of all, you know better than your kids. They don't know that, but you do. You've lived life more than you've experienced more than they have. You've gone through more pain. You've experienced more, and you know what life is like, how crazy and hard it can be, and how great it can be. And so you and I feel this. I want my kids to have a better life than I did, and so we set them up on paths that we want them to go down. Here's what I want for my kids. Here's what I want for their experience. Maybe we even think about, here's the career you should think about because, you'll have a nice salary, you'll have a higher income and a better life. And here's the kind of things I want you to be involved in and things you like, and you have what you, in your mind, the kind of life you want for your kids. If you're not careful, man, even your kids can become idols that you place ahead of Jesus. The most important people in your life, your kids, can become the things that compete with Jesus. Whoa. And so what it looks like then, if you say, I'm giving up control, Jesus, I'm giving up the control that I feel of wanting for my kids and say, you have your way with them. Whoa. I know the life that I hope that they have. I want this is the kind of life that I hope that they go down. And yet, you may have a different path that is even better than I can imagine. And if I try to control I want you to do this, you need to go, and I want you to think about this schooling and this thing. And all of a sudden, I find myself, listen to this, I've talked to so many parents that they've experienced this. I find myself, you can find yourself fighting against God's will in their life. God wants this in their life, and you're saying, no, I have a better plan. Whoa. So giving up the control of what you think is best for your kids in light of, Lord, I want what you want in their life. What's the cost? You're not giving up your kids, right? Why would you give up your kids for Jesus? But you can recognize, ready for this? You can recognize as much as they share your DNA, they share your blood, those are not your kids. They're not your kids. You had a hand in the process. You did. Good job. You did a good job. But God is the one who quite literally creates life and builds us together, cell by cell. Those are his kids. And so you say, Lord, as much as they're my kids, they're yours, and I give them to you. I sacrifice the control or the thought that I'm somehow in charge of and I put it at your feet. I want their lives and their future I give to you. in pursuit of the value of this kingdom. Whoa. This is what Jesus does. It exposes what you truly value, and then you get to a point where you say, man, I need to give that. I have to give that up too. I have to give up what I expect out of life, what I want Jesus to do in my life and my loved one's life, and say, I'm not in charge. You and I, we want peace, and yet our actions can be different. We want peace, and yet we cling to control. We want holiness, yet we cling to hidden sin. We say Jesus is first. Jesus is the most important thing, and yet our priority speaks differently. Your priorities are not that. We say Jesus is enough, and yet anxiety rules our life. We say we trust you, and yet we doubt him. We say Jesus is our treasure, and yet we disobey, and we can't surrender. The gospel is not that you sold everything and you earned the treasure. This is not about you doing a good job. The gospel is that Jesus gave everything to bring you into the kingdom. And you understand the value and worth of that and say, I'll quite literally sacrifice anything for it, including my own life. Because if I die, I win. What can life possibly take that Jesus can't replace? That Jesus somehow can't give more of? Quite literally, the author of life. We gladly, you and I, if you get to the point where you gladly release the lesser things when you finally realize the worth of Jesus. So how do you do this? Ready? You name your treasure. I just named mine. I got 4 of them. The most important, the things that you say, these are the things that I can't live without. This is the thing. And it may be a career, it may be a job, it may be approval, it may be comfort, it may be success, it may be the life you picture yourself, it may be a relationship, it may be all kinds of things. Like, this is it. This is the most important thing in my life. Great. And it's not, whatever you list, whatever you think of, it's not a bad thing. It's not wrong. It's not sinful. It's not like, how could you? It's like, no, for me, those are my kids. Like this, I love my kids more than anything. How could you? How could I? That's like, what are you talking about? Those are my treasures. You have treasures in your life, and they're not necessarily bad things. Second thing, you name what Jesus is asking you to release, to let go of. Whatever the treasure is, all right, what does it look like to release control and ownership of that thing? In pursuit of more Jesus, how do you release control of that thing? Whatever that is. If it's your career, you say, I spent my whole life building a career, getting to this point, and yet, if Jesus asked me to give it up, could I do that? Could I give it up tomorrow? Could I sell the business, cash in, and be done, walk away from all of it in pursuit of more Jesus? Could I release control over the things that, could I give up wanting more comfort, the next thing, in pursuit of more Jesus? And then the third thing, here's what you do. Ready? You choose obedience with joy. You don't ask. The question is not, what's the least I can pay to get this? The kingdom is not something that you bargain shop for. Jesus is not something where you try and find the lowest number you can agree on. The question is not, how little can I give up? This is what you ask yourself. What needs to change in my life because Jesus is worth everything? What needs to change in your life if you value Jesus as worth everything? What changes? What changes in your life specifically if you recognize just how valuable this is? Jesus, he cannot be your treasure if he's just your add-on, if he's just one more thing amidst a whole bunch of other treasures. He's the one you sell all the other treasures for because it's that valuable. Will you stand with me, and then we're going to worship. And then we'll close. So Lord, I fully admit that I'll speak for myself. I don't always recognize or remind myself of the value of this treasure that we have. And I need it just as much as anyone else. So with all of us here, I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond with heads bowed. And if you're at a point where you feel like there are things you need to surrender in your life, and I'm assuming you may be a Christian for decades, but you also recognize that there are competing values that you have maybe placed over the worth of surrendering to Jesus. I'm going to ask that you do this. You can look at me, you just put your hands out as though you're about to get a gift, like someone's going to give you a gift and you receive it. All right. And you're saying, this is you. You're saying, Lord, I'm releasing control of the things that I'm trying to control, and instead I want to receive what you have for me. I'm releasing control of the things that I value, of even my own life, and instead I receive the life you want for me. I want to give up, and I'm willing to lose anything that competes with you. And I want to receive with joy the kingdom of heaven. Lord, with our hands out, myself included, we do want to receive what you have for us. And it's probably not anything we can imagine even right now. And it's scary. It's intimidating. It can be frustrating. It can cause anxiety of saying, I don't know what God's going to do in my life, and I'm scared. And yet here we are saying, have your way. We are willing to lose control of our lives and of outcomes and say, Lord, you be in charge. So Jesus, thank you. Thank you because of the joy set before you. You endured the cross out of joy of knowing that we will one day be with you. You sacrificed so that we could enter relationship. And so now help us to understand out of the joy of the value of the kingdom that we found, of this great treasure, that we are willing to give up anything that competes with it. We thank you, Jesus. We worship you now. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.